notice where or do any appropriate actions. Okay, look, welcome everybody. We've got a pretty tight agenda, and we'll do our best to keep on time. So, you're aware of health and safety that are exits. You know, they're important out the back. It's going to be and as I said, we are recording. So once again, we make thanks for attending, and if you have any apologies, no. Or we have any conflicts of interest? No. Public participation? None. Exit from public participation? Obviously, no. No extraordinary business. We do have on A6, page 1 to 4, minutes for confirmation. Now, so would someone like to move that we receive the minutes from the 7th on through correct record 7th for June. Someone like to move that, please? Okay. Is there any discussion from those minutes? Right. We can move on for pages 8-7 from 5 to 6 minutes from the subcommittee waterways committee on the 30th of June. Someone like to move, we receive those minutes. Alex, we will be bringing up those, the discussion around the water races and subcommittee reports. So you have to move any discussion from that to the E6 and B1. Or fail. Yep. Right. Reports from subcommittees. B1 and pages 7 to 8. It's the recommendation from the water race subcommittee. Yes. Colin. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So B1 really outlines a paper that was put to the Assets and Services Committee at the last meeting. And I guess that the committee were expecting some sort of resolution from this committee as a recommendation back to council in terms of the request that any funding associated to Grey Down Stormwater is not part of rate funding from the water ratepayers. So I guess that the paper that's gone up today does require some level of commitment from the, or recommendation from the Assets and Services Committee back to council endorsing that recommendation.
Okay. First I've got to do is someone that we received that Ross and Alistair. Thank you. Now, I guess you will be trying to read it. The only question I have, and I don't know whether you can answer it, Colin, is any indication of cost that may be involved with council?
No, when I spoke to Bill about this, Bill Sloan, he was saying it's probably been occurring for a number of years now that money has obviously come out of that pool, although there was no accurate figure, so I'm not sure. In fact, perhaps even might have given us some But our contractors, of course, have been working in Grey Down or across the network now for a number of years, and often they're called to blockages, etc. In Grey Down that have a direct correlation with the stormwater network.
Do you know those that work done on for blockages regarding stormwater in chase of council?
Well, they would have been charged for council, but what pocket of money that they've come out of, whether it's come out of the race money, because they're contractors, of course, are contracted to provide provide services to the Waterways network and be called accordingly when there is a blockage. So that of course, that would be a direct expense to the Waterways rateable.
There is a way that going forward here we can itemise these costs where they like land.
Yep, certainly. I mean, obviously that for storm function, there's still part of the waterways. So certainly we can look into nature of the events, cost, locations.
I guess my view is that, it's been there for 100 years, and it council didn't agree to this, they're going to have to put up their own network stormwater system anyway. So this is probably a better way of funding
I'm just interested as to why the officers thought that having the water ratepayers pay for the stormwater thing was a good idea. I don't know.
I think this is just an area that's been overlooked. I don't think it was a conscious effort by any officers with regards to this, but it's just a clarification we need to make. I feel that it will be made much easier to transfer to Wellington Water from that. And it's self-resolving as of November. So just in October, so in that interim period, it's just that we need to highlight that any stormwater improvements need to be allocated to council, not to ratepayers.
Okay, I guess we can move on to the recommendation, which is that the following recommendation from the Waterways Subcommittee be considered. So we push that recommendation through. Yes. Yep. The recommendation that the officers have clarified is to recommend to the Access and Services Committee management and further investigation of the breakdown stormwater system which uses the raw waterways. And any consequent funding capital improvement works within the breakdown urban area needs to be considered by the Access and Services Committee. The Waterways Committee confirm and recommend any resourcing to secure that outcome in any way is not funded by the Waterways ratepayers. And that's a recommendation that we will put to council. So I'd like to move that. Alex. All in favour? Aye. Thank you. Moving on. Right. We have Warrington Water.
We come up here.
So from there. I'll let you introduce yourself. Well,
Well, I should be able just to say today, I'm Brendan Pura, I'm the Chief Executive of Water. Today we've got Ian McSherry, who does a lot of things, but most importantly, he's a relationship manager for the South Warwick District Council. And we've got Vic Meggs, who is the service delivery manager in our customer operations group, who is a local ratepayer. So he come to give you some insights into that. But look, just from my perspective, last October, council decided to join our other 5 owners in the Wellington region to have Wellington Water look after your three water assets, and we're sort of 10 months into that. And today we've come to talk to you a little bit about that performance. But at a high level, from my perspective, I think it's been fabulous to have you as part of the shareholding group. And why is that? Because we've been managing in a metropolitan area for the last 5 years, and to have the South Warwick come in just from the size and the different way in which you manage your community, I think that's rounded us all very well. So we're very pleased to serve you. And we look forward to continuing to do that into the future. So that I'll pass it over to Ian.
Thank you. So I guess with what I was going to do is just break this into 3 areas, and happy to keep it to be an open conversation rather than just talking to you guys. But I was going to start off with just reflecting on our 3 outcomes, our long run things we test ourselves against. A bit of a chat about how CapEx and OpEx went within the last 9 months last year.
Yep.
Provide maybe some key insights and highlights around the report performance dashboard, and then we have a chat maybe about looking ahead as well. And then we've got some other things on the agenda there, but just from a performance point of view, maybe do that, and then we can have a chat about the other things that are on the horizon, so to speak. Yeah, so I guess just to remind everyone, we as a business, we kind of measure ourselves against 3 long run outcomes: healthy and safe water, respecting for the environment, and resilient networks to support local communities. And to be fair to say, I guess, taking over on the 1st of October last year, we were probably hitting those 3 heads in the solar plexus, so to speak, over here, But reflect on, I think we've made some really good progress against those outcomes even in the 9 months that we're certainly a lot better informed now. And you guys are well aware that we first up we hit the healthy, we hit the safe and healthy water and outcomes pretty hard early on. And I think it's really you really need to congratulate yourselves where we've got to, where we've got to collectively on that. We're all on the track to be having a fully compliant system come the end of this year. And I think with the regulator being set up and only be around the corner, you guys can sit back and watch everyone else and see how they get on with the regulator. But you guys, as a small council, can really sit back and actually welcome the regulator. I think at this stage, which is awesome. And the respect for the environment, obviously we had those couple of incidents back in January with the Martin treatment plant. And I think where we sit now, we've put a lot of effort in since then, and we do understand the condition of the critical assets now. With regards to the environment and use of wastewater, and as we presented last time, we were confronted over the last ones. We've got a good plan in place, I think, to improve those outcomes as we go forward. And I guess just on the third thing, resilient networks, we've obviously had some pretty significant failures over the last 9 months. And I think collectively, again, we've responded well to them, and we've dealt with them quickly. And right from the go, we had a couple of, and more recently we had Featherstone, and COVID on top of everything. I think we responded well. We've still got a bit more work to do to understand I guess we're still learning more about the risks we've got on the network, and we still want to do more work in that area around condition of our assets. So we get less of these failures. So to reflect across how we've done that, I guess number one, I'd say the relationship model is common, and kind of alluded to earlier. I think it's gone really well. I think we're really, with Harry and you and Katrina and the rest of the team and South Africa, quite well up and down to Vic's team on the ground and having that local presence. And I think it's really working well, that relationship model. And I think everyone enjoys working in that, and it actually makes things work well, because then we get into a period. The second key, I think, has been we've been able to build capability. The local team has grown, but we've also hopefully built our capability and also been able to back them up with our specialist capability over the hill, and having access to our kind of depth of water people, whether that be dealing with trade waste issues, being able to get some specialists over the hill to help with that. The same would say stuff like our in-house control system. Guys have done a lot of work over here on the system. But right across the board, I think it's been really positive, and the team have enjoyed getting over here and doing something a little bit different, which I think has been good. That makes sense. I guess we've also tried through that to have a strong customer focus, and I guess that's been particularly challenging, because there is, we're seeing probably reflected more than ever. We've had, there is rising expectations when it comes to water across the region. We're seeing, and customers are, want expecting more, which is their prerogative. And I think it's a positive thing. And I think this council have really taken on board feedback we've got through the annual plan process around that, which has been good, and actually backed it up with supporting Three Waters, which is very positive. And that makes sense. So any questions now, Larry? Will I keep talking?
No, I'm just taking into explaining to us that personally, I'm thankful we're talking about water has been a big issue for us. And I guess with a big problem with you guys, for a start with you were coming into a bit of the unknown. You didn't know what the network was like. I guess you know a lot more about it now. And I think too that we know a lot more about it now than we really know in the past. And the fact that you any breaches of the consent, particularly with the Martinborough and Lake Ferry, that you've been on to it straight away, and now we haven't had to really push you to do it, because you've just been able to do it. We're in the past, we have had issues getting it done. So on that, I thank you for the and help with this.
Yeah, much of what you're saying, Chair. It's interesting that I think it's very difficult to look at past results and compare them to results at the moment, because I think we have an increased level of transparency on what's going on and the way that that's reported. So it's very difficult to gauge the state of our network based on the number of call-outs or reported breaches. But if I could go to page 12 of the report, and which is the response times and customer satisfaction by council. And while it's fantastic, the South Wairarapa District Council seems to be totally at odds with the response time in the other councils in a positive way. How do you account for this dramatic difference between Hutt City 11-day response time versus output? And 41 hours versus Wellington City Council 146 hours. Why are we doing so well on response time?
Well, I think the first answer is that your system is understood, and those measures are now close to the way they should be managed. Over the hill, we had trouble with the with the closing down of the last contract, and then we set up a new COG, and we also found that some of the performance management material that we were using, was crook. And as we dug into that and got deeper, we found it was worse than we thought. So, we busted our way out of that in the last 12 months, and now we're in exactly the same position as South Wairarapa over the hill. What the other councils have had to come to grips with is that what we were saying was right 2 years earlier was not correct, and we are now right, and so they've had to readjust their understanding of our overall response times across the network, which are bigger than what they might have imagined earlier. So
this is a resourcing of the councils to Wellington Water to respond to issues.
But first of all, it's getting the data right and having transparency and working out what we sit at the moment. And where we're sitting is different what their expectations were 2 years ago. So we've had to get them back into that position. Now they can consider further investments to make that go down if they wish to. But, Vic will be able to help you with this as well. But in Wellington City, with the ageing asset issue, not only are the number of leaks going up, the complexity is going up. And it's costing us a lot of money to fix them. I don't think we're ever going to get even near the 4 hours, to tell you the truth. And we have to get them to understand that. Whereas in your network, we're pretty comfortable where we sit at the moment.
And it just,
So some of it's the use of technology. So some people are very good at using technology. Probably the guys over here are good at using iPads. So when they get out to a job, they're putting in the data straight away. Probably on the other side of the hill, they're not so good. So all staff will go and attend to the job and fix the problem first. That's the main priority. And then they'll do the data later. Here they're doing the data as soon as that job's finished. Over there, they might actually end up going back to the yard before they can pay all the paperwork. So there's a bit of a education and training required continuously with our staff, especially as we get new staff coming on board. We've got to make sure that they're doing everything as quickly as we need them to. So when we report on that data, it's accurate.
And I think we're going to, can I just add something? Yes. I think the other thing is we want to migrate, those performance measures, in the discussion with some of the councils, we're down really, technical levels of detail around the response times. We want to focus on customer service first, so we're 86% based on callback. And then you just say, well, what's the next thing? Well, on those critical repairs where you have a large break, to what degree are you meeting the customer's expectations about offering alternative water supplies and things like that. So I think there's an education process as well to try and get those measures more focused on the right thing you're trying to do to communities. At the moment, everything's treated the same down at a very technical call out versus have to close it out, which is not really the value offering that we provide. So we're trying to educate our other owners and see if we can get some better measures going forward. Would be my advice.
Rebecca.
It's just a question in the report. You talked about rolling out a new system, Maximo. So you're anticipating rolling out the system that might resolve some of these issues, so guys can really pick up technology and field.
Yep, definitely. So that got rolled out, I think, on the 1st of July. So we're in the process of training staff on how to use it. So it'll collect a lot more information, especially active information, which has been lacking. But it'll also measure response times. It'll also enable us to track our costs better. So there's a whole lot of benefits with that. At the moment, we're in phase 1. There'll be probably another 2 phases before it's fully up and running. And that's probably expected to be end of phase 3, probably around about Christmas time.
And that's one of the trends worldwide, isn't it? It's just becoming more digitally savvy, and Maximo is just a start for us. And I think we're a bit immature in this area as a company, and we just got to really start becoming much more digitally savvy. And just to come back to Alex's point, there were 5 measures in our performance system with the other councils that you cannot measure without Maximo. So if you come down to having people offline, and the number of houses and the number of hours affected, for example, for some of those measures, without a system, you cannot record that well enough to pull a measure together. And it's been hard to explain it to our own, but the old system just couldn't do it. But now we can do that, and they thought they were getting that information in the past. So there's been a little bit of having to speak very frankly about what we can and can't do, From 1 July, that's all pretty much fixed, hopefully, so that's pretty cool, I reckon. 1 July gone, I should say.
Can I speak on another thing? Just you were saying that Maximo is going to be able to be recorded asset condition. So obviously asset conditions being recorded, assuming that that data's been sucked into.
Yes,
systems, so
yes,
now
yeah,
actually
yeah.
looking at really building up the capability that can have alongside that.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a backlog of issues over the past. A lot of councils hold information from years ago, either in reports that haven't been digitised and stuff like that. And we've got a real focus over the next year to try and get all of that data into both Maximo and Infinite, to asset management tools. And when we get that into position, we'll be getting pretty heavy.
How are we faring in that space?
Well, you're part of that piece of work.
Yeah, we have that data.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about the data set that we hold now.
we've got the data, but we don't have it in a way that's easily accessible, I guess, So that'll be part of the piece of work.
Alex, do you?
Water loss, 19% over the region. Can we be more south-wide, like a specific or even town-specific on water loss?
So yeah, like, it's actually one of the key things I was going to talk about was around, so the water loss for the South Rapids, or should I say consumption, is 557 litres per person per day, or 55%, water loss, which is high compared to our metropoles, which are higher, so 360 something like that.
So, can you go back over that again? So our usage is 557.
Yeah.
But our water loss as a percentage of that is
55% is the recorded measure here.
55% water loss.
I just think that how accurate is that 55%? I guess because you've got meters at the gate, is that reasonably accurate? Because you don't want to compare that with our issues over the hill, because we don't have enough meters in here to really, it's a big wide range of loss. Yeah, so 55 quite.
No, there's a number of caveats on it here, so it's probably no more accurate than what we
But what do you define as water loss? Given that high number, it's just water that's being pumped in but not being used by the public.
Into the ground or either on your near or on the private side, right?
Yeah. You've got that data count by count.
We probably have that data, but we've obviously rolled up for the district here.
Well, we can provide that.
We can. There are a couple of insights, I guess, around that. One of them is we actually had to manipulate the flow, for want of a better word, in Greytown while we were doing that upgrade work to actually get enough flow for the treatment system to work, which has kind of elevated that water loss, if you like, that number, if that makes sense.
But I mean, I think going forward, all of our owners, we're all adopting a conservation-minded approach, not a building water supply or storage. And so, the next year and the next LGP, that's one of our key priorities is to better measure the system and then reduce its leakage.
Yeah. So what are we doing now to ameliorate the 55% loss right now? I mean, that's a massive figure.
So we do have a leak detection program, and we'll talk a bit later actually about our reform stuff as well. And I think this, part of that would be the relation between actually looking at demand as well as loss. It's all part of the same thing, and if that makes sense.
We want you to go back to that, but I don't actually answer the question correctly. We're stabilising the system so we know exactly what's going on, and then we'll start moving into addressing these issues progressively once we know. And with the potential help of the agencies with this fiscal swimmers of stage one, we've got an opportunity to do some trials and some new ideas that try and accelerate the reduction.
Yeah, like one of the things with the size of the networks over here, it can sometimes be 1 or 2 leaks that have a huge effect. And we've got something like Greytown, say, where the ground pushes where maybe some of these leaks don't show up, they just drain away into the ground. That can be, it can really affect these numbers. And so getting more intelligent about understanding the system, will help us with that.
Gary,
Yeah, just to be clarified, so when we talk about water loss, you're talking about drinking reticulated water.
Yeah.
Across the whole network.
Yeah.
All three towns is 55%.
Yeah.
And we can't isolate town by town.
Oh, I'm sure we get you that data as
Yeah.
essential, yeah.
Yeah, so it is basically what we can walk down.
Yeah, I think that's the way I would try and lead the conversation in this, just to say it's not good enough, it's not good enough over the top.
No.
And what we've got to do now is offer ideas and methodology to try and find those so you can drive it down. The key metric for us going forward is, is your leak amount going down over time? Because if it doesn't, then we're not meeting our conservation focused approach.
But at least you've got the methods so you can actually work it out.
Yes, that's right.
Which is a plus.
And I think we must be able to be more sophisticated modelling that and get a better understanding of that, because you have got meters at the gate. It's a closed system technically, isn't it?
Yeah, it scares me on what our water loss may have been in the past.
I mean, when one of the water came on, this government, you could say drinking water. And we're starting to achieve that. And then we're now moving to the next stage of water conservation and usage. And then who knows what we're going to be doing after.
Yeah, and it's probably fair to say in the first year we probably, the water loss and the reactive waste, so when we've seen it go off, we then got onto it, but we obviously want to get more in touch about it. We can get smart meters into the network and actually understand where the loss is on the private side, is it on the network side, and actually chase them down and intelligent way. It will definitely help us.
Just think about it. Can you get meters into your laterals, your smart meters into your laterals, rather than each individual house, to give you an indication of where that usage may be, or leakages?
So overseas, there's two schools of thoughts on this. The first is that you put meters throughout on every single private connection. The second is that you just have a much more sophisticated way of measuring use throughout the network, and then use temporary meters from time to time on various parts of your network to try and estimate that. And both of those schools of thought are alive and well. We've got to decide, what's best. But, because you've already got your residential side networks, it should be quite easy to supplement that and work it out. Over the hill, it's a much bigger question for them to deal with. But if I could just finish just a minute, Rebecca, the point you're making here about the evolution of what we're doing is a good summary in my mind, and I think it was the right choice, because with Taumata Aroa coming on, they'll have a mandate by November. They'll get all of their OIAs done around their regulation. And by that time, hopefully, we're delivering, completely safe water over here. I mean, that's a fabulous result for a small rural area of New Zealand where the government's pointing the finger at it. That's the word.
It's good. It's really good conversation, actually. Some of the conversations answering other questions that I have. Thank you, Colin. Just wanted to reflect on some questions that come from page 19 of the performance dashboard. And it's just harking back to the wood conservation strategy. So this is page 19 of my stuff. But, it's about the Greater Water Treatment Plant, actually, and it's looking to the conservation environments. And you might have touched on this when we talked about trials, but we run into waste a lot of water in Greater to trial that system at the moment. We're kind of concerned about that because last time we had a conversation about turbidity at that plant, and this was an issue that we needed to manage, and I was assured that it was in hand. I'm not convinced yet that I'm thinking that it is in hand. But if we're going to continue to run waste water at that plant while we're trialling it, how long is our trial going to go for? Is there the ability to actually collect that water and use that for something else, put it back onto the playing field, start to recharge the aquifers? Because it seems to me that we're immediately not meeting what we need to be doing.
Not looking after the precious resource.
Yeah, we're not being stewards of that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I understand, Rebecca, it is a temporary measure until we get back to phase 2 of the project completed, And it's all about making that priority safe water. You can't treat effectively unless you have an inflow and a way the system set up. So
yeah.
So you're saying that the
Because
waste.
we've doing it for a long time. That's the point that I'm making. Yeah.
If I understand your question, like, what you're saying is that we'll continue to waste it until we've finished the work, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And the question is, can we stop wasting it?
Can we put it into the water rates next week and decrease our reward?
I mean, that's the question that I'm putting towards Wellington Water, is that we are using the resource and we're actually not wasting that resource. And I don't see that run to waste as being something that should be run to waste. And other treatment plants that might be taken back through the plant, that might be taken to another plant that might be used to.
Yeah, well, it's funny, but I guess that it all goes back to head systems instead of they would have any buffering, you know, so it's straight into the network, you know. Just a problem.
Maybe we could take some homework on that.
Yeah, we said it can.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying.
My question was really stupid, so I'm going to ask it anyway. If we're losing over half of our water, and we're designing our plant systems to produce the amount of water that we're currently using, which is 50% wasted, if we fix the problem of leakage, are we going to have an overcapacity on our systems, and will they still run effectively? Because if we fix the problems, we're going to need to produce half as much water. Yeah? Is it
Logical, yeah.
logical? We're putting all this money in to produce a plant that produces this amount of water that we need now, but if we fix our leakage, we're going to have a plant that won't run to efficiency because it will be starting and stopping and starting and stopping.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not an expert in this, but like, you'll get to an economic level of leakage as well, so.
Well, what's an economic leakage? What's an economic leakage?
Well, it's your explanation.
What's an acceptable? So we're miles away.
It does require a mindset to accept that your network will not be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be fully watertight. But the amount of leakage we have here and over hills is not a best practice if you're trying to conserve the environment. But the point you're making is, and I think we'll take that away, that question's a bit of homework as well, but you know, having additional capacity for shocks and stresses and all of that sort of thing is quite sensible. And you know, my
But it's almost like 100%.
Well,
We can probably fix the leak.
You're talking
100%.
without getting too technical, you design a system for peak demand,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
And the other thing is the demand of the plant is 6 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may take some time to find all the leaks and fix them as well, and you've also got population growth, so your demand will keep on increasing.
Yeah, but I suppose that we're spending a huge amount of money to upgrade the system and to create capacity. But if we reduce our leakage, which obviously we want to give your strategy, you know, we're still 50% over and above.
I think we should cut. Just want to let us segue into water reform because you've got some money. Just I'll come back to it. Just on, I won't go into it in full. You've got some money on the table, and you have to decide whether to sign up a memorandum of understanding and access that money. I think we can cut to the chase on this issue that we have ideas inside that money to address this issue front on. And I can't remember if it's just we select one town and try and do a trial with it. But that is where we should be putting our energy into saying, you know, you're all agreeing it's not good enough. And then if we can do that trial, then we'll have much more data and information, what it will take to address it and what are the consequential problems. I think that's where we want to go, you know. And we've got a wonderful opportunity to do that. And part of your question is that why are those leaks so high and why are they still the same after years and years of management? We have to reflect back on the investment levels between the councils and Wellington Water, where, you know, they wanted us to be reactive to visible surface leaks only. And everyone was just like this to the underground. But we're just doing that now, aren't we? We're evolving in, your point, evolving into that world.
Exactly, that was one. So, you know, we didn't have the Palliser, we didn't have the Star. And what Tom's saying, he's got homework to do on it, so we could actually, be in a far better position to understand what we have to do.
Absolutely, but I'm very concerned that we don't overcommit capital if we're going to, if it's going to cause a problem down when we fix the leaks.
Yeah,
I don't know, that's sort of like.
just thinking offhand, but like, think a lot of our work isn't around capacity, it's more around improvements, you know.
Look, I'll put them in wrong, and need to move on, we're short of time, so put the question.
Just with regards to the oxidation, site oxidation, with regards to exactly what Councillor Fox brought up, the response timeframe was, we didn't really get an answer, like what timeframe are you looking at? Because just saying that there will be a time, you know, like that we'll look into it. It's really nice just to kind of have an idea of, one, how long this, it's only temporary, but it's been only temporary for quite some time. Where's our aim? What are we looking at as our finish, as that finish line? Just so we can get some time frames with regards to that, especially with the fact that water is being wasted, that could possibly be looked at to go into other places. So even.
Yes, are you talking about the question around how people want to get on top of the leakage issue, or are you talking about our response times to actual products?
Oh no,
Part B, which criteria about the
run-to-waste, yeah, so what would you?
Oh, we'll come back, we'll come back pretty soon on that.
Do we know when we're going to have exits?
Oh.
Because understanding that it was temporary, but we know that it was temporary, but it's been temporary for a wee while now, so we'd just like to know, because then it stops being temporary.
So it's normally a bit of CE, so roughly, I think.
Yeah, just
roughly, I think it's towards the end of this year, but let me come back to you exactly. I know the team are all systems going, so they're working hard on it, so. I just need to get an update from one of us.
Does that sound right? Yeah, it sounds like it's a bit of hard work.
Yeah, it does.
Quite on track like any year, right?
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah, firstly a comment. I think it's fair to say that we passed you a poison chalice. What was inside there that is broken, and you've risen to the occasion, in my view, with some critical breakages, wastewater problems in Martinborough and now in Berrima, and the Featherston water supply interruption, which I was very impressed with your response. Now, that was extremely well communicated too, and working on the main street with my wife fuming about not being able to serve coffees, your line of communication went a long way to helping people get to grips with the problems we have and the fact that there were people already on site and working late into the night. Well done. But in terms of response times, you have a depot up and running in the Wairau now, don't you?
Yes,
yeah. Now, has that reduced noticeably or measurably the response times that we have? I see we've got an issue with response times in your report, but I guess that was treated by earlier move over Wellington.
It probably hasn't, because most of our staff live in Masterton. I think we've got one staff member that lives in Carlton, and the rest are in Masterton. So in terms of response times, especially after hours, they've got to answer their phone, get their vehicle, drive to the job. Obviously, they try and triage the call, so if it's non-urgent, they won't go and do it. They'll put it on the next day, which triggers a different response time. But with a 60-minute attendance on site, if you're driving from Masterton to here, your 60 minutes is pretty well gobbled up. So that's why we're talking about realistic response times.
So, yeah, my hope the level of service responded to obviously we never meet those response times.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why I think our pitch at the moment is go for customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
And then once we're happy with the level of that, then how do we want Wellington Water, how does you as an owner want Wellington Water to respond to these events that occur? My suggestion to you to think about is to stratify that answer around the critical things that happen and what you want us to do when that happens. But these little leaky things that happen day to day, when most customers don't seem to mind if they're done in a day, why spend so much money on getting us to get there in 60 minutes? Those are things I think we need to talk about.
So that's level of service.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I was going to mention, because I did an introduction to a staff yesterday, and one of your water technicians who lives at Aranika, and it's a new one, just in the last few weeks back, has arrived and lives there. And it's a fantastic story, because this person is coming from Perth, has been employed into the network, and he's come into the business with all this water experience. He's born and bred in Cardigan, now living there, and is out on the network. This is where we can't get this anywhere else. We've got a camera-ready person coming back into our system and being able to be deployed on the network with all the skills in the world. So pretty cool, really, some of those things.
All right, time is of the essence, so we'll move on to the next, C2 and approve. Can someone move? All over. Right, moving on to C2, which is the statement of intent. It's pretty broad.
Yes, I think if we could maybe spend the remaining time on water report, but from a statement of intent point of view, if I tell you that story quickly, and if you've got the time to read it, I'd be delighted for you to do it. It's basically just simply said we live in a wonderful part of New Zealand, and looking after water is what we're all about. And how do we do that? We want to earn the trust of our own councils, yourselves. We want to be trusted by Manawhenua, and we want to be trusted by the customers that we serve, both of us. And then we want to make sure that we keep those three outcomes in mind. The long-term direction is around safe and healthy water, respect for the environment, and resilient networks for the local economy. And then we're focused on these 5 priorities, which is looking after existing infrastructure, supporting your growth agenda, reducing the demand for drinking water, which we've talked at length about, improving the water quality of your rivers, streams and oceans, and progressively reducing the amount of carbon equivalent emissions you have in the network, on track for 2050 net carbon zero. Now, those are some of that stuff is pretty aspirational, and then we go on to tell you how we organise ourselves and how hopefully we end up being a very friendly mob of people who are technically competent and get the job done for you. So that's what our SOI does in about 2 minutes.
Well,
Great.
we should discuss before. In the last 10 months, you've got a long way to do that, and we appreciate it.
And I can also comment on the SOI that's been pretty closely examined by the committee.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Now, someone move here. Moving on to C3, which is a verbal update. Yes, but I'd like to move with Gareth. Of course he is. We're all in favour of the verbal update on water and water. Water reform, sorry. Yeah.
So, it'd be good if Alex, you want to start off on that, and I can find where we're up to, or how you want me to do it. Do you want to explain it, or do you want
to? So, I'm aware of the water reform process that's been kicked off, which I guess was a bit of a direct result around the background rate in Happo, and then a series of reviews, which is in central and local government around reforming and the way that water services are delivered. And a number of us have also been to a session in Palmerston North last week, I think it was, which obviously provides a lot of background to that discussion. So I don't want to go into too much, but there's also a reform agenda within the government to consolidate the way that water services are delivered across New Zealand. And this is really that's a bit of an update on progress that's been made.
So I've been following this very carefully. It's a major change in the approach to ownership and management of the largest asset in public ownership in New Zealand. The field has changed a bit in the beginning. It used to be that it would not be a territorial-based aggregation of services, and it looks like we are now moving towards that. It also has a concern to me in as much as you're locked into a water asset management company as opposed to have the ability to change if you're dissatisfied. So those are two serious issues that we've raised with the steering committee and a number of councils, and moving once we've seen the picture to make sure that we are part of a consultation instead of an engagement, that we can actually change the flavour of what's being proposed. The initial tranche one looks to have no officials. It's just an agreement to enter into good faith negotiations with the government with regards to the future. And it'll be interesting to hear these guys whether or not they're seeing officials that I'm not. But that does free up a certain amount of money to be spent immediately on upgrading our infrastructure.
Cool. So if I can just step in here, you asked us to put together the delivery plan, and the delivery plan submitted to the Department of Internal Affairs and the Crown Infrastructure Partners, and it explains what you want to do with the stage one funding. Now, the way, as Alex has explained, the stage one funding was allocated directly to councils to 50%, and then the remainder was allocated to a regional sum. Alex participated in the discussion last Friday with all the mayors in the room, and they agreed to distribute the regional money in exactly the same proportion as what the original allocation was done. So what happens, if I've got the top of my head at you, I think it's 1.42 million, is it? So you end up with 2.84 million to be spent by 31st of March 2022 if you choose to sign up to the memorandum of understanding with the government. Our delivery plan has been worked on over the last week, so it's very well advanced. It's now been disaggregated out of a whole of network approach down into the individual buckets for each council. So I think Ewan and Katrina will have that information as of last night. And so what you can do, if you so choose to enter into stage one discussions with the government, you can receive that delivery plan at exactly the same meeting, and you can endorse it, and then we can submit it to Crown Infrastructure Partners, and then we can start delivering the work if you are happy with the proposal we put together, which is not surprisingly. Are you going to talk about what's in the delivery plan?
Yeah, I can do this
just in a second. So then what we're focused on is, rather than take too long to get that all signed up, this is about fiscal stimulus, it's about jobs, it's about reducing risk in your network. But we've really worked hard to try and get that MOU potentially signed and the delivery plan agreed at the same time. Don't take the extra 2 months, let's just get on with it. So in terms of what's in that delivery plan for you over the next 18 months, maybe you can talk about that.
So before we go into the detail of the delivery plan, I was noting we do have short next meeting scheduled on the 19th of August. Yep. And there'll be a briefing today.
So maybe that we can wait till then.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, I just want, have you guys got the capability to?
So at the moment, across the region, it's 47.3 million is the money that would come to Wellington Water. 20 million of that would be aimed at advancing renewals, of which we are well rehearsed in ability to do that. Our current overall expenditure is 230 million on behalf of all councils, and this represents 23 million of expenditure per annum. So it's about a 10% uplift. So we're happy for the renewals. The one thing we're worried about there, though, is that with all this money going into the sector across New Zealand, we know water resources is short. So again, trying to get in there a bit early to make sure we do that.
That's an advantage to us.
Yes, yep. And this
because we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, and then the second area is in Vic area, where we want to invest in making sure we've got enough money to carry on top of all of these leaks and things, but do better planned maintenance. Because if you, at the moment, because it's so reactive, we don't do all the planned maintenance we want to do on the networks, and they reduce the impact on customers, they make sure that works, and that's what we want to get into, so we're proposing that. Then the second big tranche is much improved condition assessment, so we can optimise your renewal. And picking up Rebecca's point, moving the company into a more digitised platform. It's that inspection and condition assessment and digitisation is where we will be a bit stretched and challenged. So we're just having a bit of think about how we go about that. So your question about do we have the capacity to do it? Yes, on all the rest. in that particular area, we'll have to think carefully about it. But now that they've lengthened it out to 18 months and possibly negotiable to 24, I'm pretty comfortable that we'll be able to manage that right on everyone's behalf.
Ian, did you want to expand on that, or will we, I mean, as you said, we are workshopping this.
That's all. That's the funding agreement and the delivery plan, which is in that, like.
Yeah, well, I think Tom's already mentioned two of the big areas, which is the renewals and the condition assessment and the actual plan maintenance. The other areas, probably of interest to several records, we want to, as we mentioned earlier, pilot a leak trial in one of the towns over here. And that's about, using technology and smart meters. And so we'll probably talk a bit more about that in the beginning of later in the month. And then the fourth thing we had as what we call a sponge project was the Borebush system. And there's obviously some bit of vulnerabilities there at the moment that came to light, a month or two ago, whenever it was. And so we had work planned there anyway. So it's a question if we have funds left out, we speed that up basically. Simple as that, as a priority.
One thing we would advocate in or advocate down, I think the last thing you want to have is leaving $1 or $2 on the table. So you've got to have some project that if it doesn't go to plan, and you get to a ticket fixed in March 2022, the surplus funds can go at one project, and that's the one we're recommending we use as that sort of sponge, as you call it.
Well, that's great, because I think that'll help councils decide on where they're going to go, because you guys have got a plan in place, and that's what we're wanting. It's
And I don't think that plan's been done in isolation. It has been in conversation with the officers.
One question. Just the only concern that I've got is, of course, everyone has got obvious that's money. And one of my concerns, a little bit of knowledge about the industry, is that do we have enough in procurement space, and do we actually have room that people pass around or do condition assessments? Do we have enough pipes? Do we have enough? I know it's a very kind of question, but if everyone's going to go and do the same thing, we potentially going to have an issue in the future.
That's probably a good point, actually. It's something we need to follow on the start of this meeting and talk to our suppliers and make sure they have got the pipe work, the hardware that we need.
I think having some conversations with
The interesting thing for me the other day was, there's some of the condition assessment tools is a thing called later profile. I'm always worried when I try and explain something like this. But anyway, it's a specialised piece of kit, and it goes through big pipes and assess it. And I said, how are we going to do that? But fascinatingly enough, it sounds as though most of the work those things do is awkward. But because of their indebtedness level and the issues they've got up in there, they're having to reprioritise. And it sounds as though some of the, so what I can understand is that possibly some of that reprioritisation has resulted in a bit of capacity in those areas that we can grab. So that's just for children. So,
definitely something on the radar. Can we access that area?
Especially if it's imported. The materials are imported actively.
And a lot of it is.
Yeah. So we're fine.
I think the thing that yours will be fine, especially with what I'm to do the data, I don't have to 10 months of events where we're originally.
I'm just thinking, you talked about a 10% uplift in renewals. So every council in New Zealand, so the 10% uplift in renewals is actually, that's a significant piece. But we're across New Zealand, it's not just going to impact on us. So
two things. One is that will they be as prompt and onto it as you? And secondly, assuming you are, and secondly, do they have the critical mass to drive this 2 or 3 months earlier than what the rest of New Zealand is doing? And to me, that is what we have been chasing on to sort of circumvent that problem a little bit. And some people would say that's a little bit self-interested to our region, but when it's in front of you, you take what you can.
I think that's a fair call. I think the other part of that too is we know how nimble is the water industry, they move for $1 each per hour.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at it's also a capability issue for us. And I can't say to you, pay your staff more, but that is something that I would be thinking about, to be able to look after our people and maintain the capability, whether there's an opportunity to develop some specialist skills that once we've done some of our work, maybe we can actually move some people around and do some different stuff.
Well, I think my response to that at a high level would be, this is 47.3 million per hour that wasn't expected 3 months ago. If we use it carefully, not only will we reduce risk, but we should be able to lift capability over the next 2 years that we never go back again. And we can prove that all of our troops are more capable, better skilled over that period. Well, that's really using government money well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I just, as for our meeting on the 19th, you put a paper on this early, so councillors.
I've drafted one up.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
And it'll have all the detail of the delivery plan in it, I presume.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, other councillors are going to ask the same question for work staff. Okay.
Hopefully when they ask you, man, you'll be able to say, yep, saw that delivery plan a month or two ago and we're off.
Yeah. But anyway. Moving on,
Excuse me, Chair, may I excuse myself, just a bit of information.
oh, I guess we.
And since we know that Alistair here, we just apologise, I'm sure. Yeah, thank you very much.
I like February, yeah.
Would I have to be excused on that? I'm just going to get back to running my legs. I might leave in, so I don't know anything about that. He knows.
Yeah, we appreciate it coming in, so you know, I didn't deal with that.
So I haven't got too much of an update in relation to everything. I think the main thing about it is, there's been some third-party damage there, and the focus of the team has been on getting the system back up and running. So we've got a temporary arrangement there that's stable. The team at the moment are testing the irrigation field, hoping to get that up and running temporarily over the next wee while. And then the third thing we're doing is we already had in the annual plan to upgrade the field anyway, so we're bringing that work forward as well at the same time. So that's really the progress in a nutshell. We're also doing a bit of lessons learned on it, because there's been third-party damage, and usually when things go wrong, it's a good opportunity to have a look and see what we can learn from it. So that's ongoing at the moment, and once we get that to a point, we'll come back and let you know the insights around that.
I guess you're fortunate that it's not a high use period of the year, and you can cope with temporary arrangement or not operate wider arrangement.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to bring up, that we do have budget to actually upgrade that system. You're bringing it forward, makes sense. So,
Yeah.
that's good.
Are all trees down?
Yeah. And that's great. Anyway, no, well, thank you very much for that.
So I just had one other quick thing, if you had time, to give you a very brief update on person consent.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know it's not the agenda. Let's do that. I'll give you 60 seconds. So just to give you, we came on a brief on the project a wee while ago. I guess the update really is we've had some good engagement with Great Wellington, and we've done a bit of a lessons learned on their feedback on what's happened to date, but we've also reset the whole consenting process, if you like, with them. It's been quite positive. They're very supportive of the plan that we put to you guys, and they've agreed to extend the consent to allow the time to do all the steps we want to, which is really positive. And the other two key things, they want to be involved as a key stakeholder right throughout, which is great. And we've also agreed to them to having, partnering up together with them on it. So what I mean by that, Steve and our major projects manager and their consenting manager will have a regular kind of partnership meeting, to make sure that, doing a relationship type of way to make sure everything runs smoothly throughout, which I think is a real positive as well. So I guess the next steps for us is really getting that communication strategy together, and we'll be sharing that with you guys, for visibility on how we in due course. So yeah, so I think it's all positive anyway, which is good.
Somebody really wants to do something.
And I would recommend also that we get maybe someone from Kingston from council and the Clayton Morphine.
Yeah.
Well, or Mary Steve.
So the Clayton Morphine possibly, there's someone on the one side.
The structure and the fundamental nature of that committee and what it actually means. So that's super.
Yeah, absolutely, that's what. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And really awesome report. Honestly, really good report.
All right, guys, all that will be great. What do you want? We're back at exit. No swear words, please. Well, guys, we're back at it. T5 is our next one. Solid waste management and middle migration report. Solid waste, move that we receive this and put back and could we get you to explain it in more detail? It is, yes, a lot of reading taken.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate that. I think we've actually been over the bylaw on a number of occasions, so I don't feel that I need to physically go through all wording on that again. But I would recommend that we look to accept it in the format that it is, and so that we can actually go out to public consultation with it. Karen might have, and Bryson, you and may have some comments that they want to make around that from our council's point of view. But I think that this bylaw gives us a number of things. It gives us more flexibility. It stops more flexibility by saying that in understanding the provider of the waste collection, so your contractors to collect up your waste. So this will basically make them be licensed, and so from that license they will then need to provide certain data to to council so that we can get a handle on what is actually going into our landfill, what quantities it's going into our landfill, and how we can then look at reducing that, so the overall effect is that we reduce what's going into the landfill. And I think that is the major thing within that. The second thing is looking at construction and demolition waste and how that can be reduced and what goes into landfills, especially in the bigger cities where, like Wellington, they have a lot of demolition waste going in, and how that can be recycled, reused, so that it doesn't fill up in our landfill. They have a major thing. Oh, the other one that I think of is a biggie is stopping all this paper, unsolicited paper that goes into people's letterboxes and then ends up back in the recycling of the rubbish.
Bryce, have you anything to add to this?
Well, basically, you've got a head document which is across the whole of the region, and then below that you've got the control stage, which is available for each council to set their controls, and that's very easy to change just through a council resolution, and that way we're not dealing with the whole head document. There's good things in there that we can control how long the bins are left out, when they can be placed out, when they should be brought back in. And the likes of the main centres, for instance, Greytown, we do have a lot of problems with bins that are down the street. And little things like that, which is really good. It gives the bylaws a lot more teeth for finding and capturing these problems. Yeah, so, and it's really, I think the other good thing is that it is across the whole region. So we are consistent right through. We had a meeting on Friday with Carlton and Masterton, just to go over some of the controls to not all council are the same. Masterton's got CBD, we do, but we don't. So things like that where we can go on road structure, road names where you can do things. So I think it's a very good document, well sorted out. I think the report basically says that anyway. Yeah, and then we've obviously got to go through the consultation.
Karen, do you have
Yeah, so just in terms of the process, as Bryce mentioned, we've got a little bit of work to do around that, the controls around the waste receptacles, and whether we want to propose having defined areas, perhaps for Greytown, whether Greytown is a particular issue, and we'll have those discussions on Friday. We are hoping to work with the other two councils to have a joint consultation exercise and joint hearings, and we'll figure that out as much as we can on Friday too. And then we'll be able to provide an update on that through the report to the 2nd of September council meeting. We are hoping that we can get sign-off across the three councils at that meeting and through their September meetings too, so that we can go out to next consultation all together before Christmas and get this out of the way for the GP engagement and consultation.
That's good. You but yeah, I've done it all. So, any questions?
I've got one, and I went to one of the meetings with Pam about this, and I raised the issues that I had with it, which was for rural waste. And I don't see that that's had any change there. I don't think they've made any effort to mitigate that. I'm certainly interested in your view, GB, about the restrictions on rural waste, particularly for very isolated communities.
Well, you know, we're only thanks to down our way. I know Tor and White Rock, or two communities, that are thankful that they've got a rubbish collection. Where our coast there, there's commercial spots there, they have got their own private arrangement with city, what do you call it, Birthkey. But No, people have spoken to our lawyer about it. Yeah, they're more than happy with this. And as long as it's across the whole region.
Is there going to be a requirement for us to provide more collection points for rural?
I think that may come, but the rural people only pay rates, rubbish rates, if they contact council. So no one, anyone who puts out a recycling bins all their household rubbish have to have it on their rates that they pay.
Just to say something on that, so not all rural people will go on the rate that we contact council. And that's mainly because they're not on the run.
On the run.
So, and that does include leaving it at the end of the street. We don't encourage that either. And because we end up getting flies away. So the other issue we have too is when the maybe you probably heard this, that huge death of the 4 trade workers up north that got killed working inside the road. So that's thrown alarm bell and safety alarm bell. So we don't take any new rural customer on a 100k road. And we haven't done that for quite some time now. It's putting our drivers at risk, and as you probably know, we got severely fined for that. And the NZTA are looking at it. Anything under 100k, we can pick up. Yes, I understand that around the coast you can't do 100k because class doesn't open road. So we're not taking any on because of that. Most people understand that when we talk to them, because whoever we get to know.
Do you think at the time that people that are on that 100k road will lose the right to have the rubbish program?
Yes, and I think going forward, the existing customers may possibly, and we're just waiting on NZTA to make that work. That's why probably aware that Masterton's done a little speed thing in their district, and some of those 100k roads have been brought back to the 80k. So that's something that we can look at.
Having to ask this question, if the people that are on the rubber run and some of them get those round bins or completely holes in that, are they allowed to be picked up?
They are, because they can actually drive into the residence.
So they have got that option.
Yeah, so that's one thing. So there are two parts in here that I found really interesting. Was and it specifically affects the rural community. And it's under the nuisance split part, so no barrier unless it's organic, which is fine. But the other one that came up and it seemed to be in there was how you dispose of the rich containers and all these sorts of things that.
So that does happen every third week on a Wednesday. The ag recovery team come out. We have a container at Nutborough at the transfer station here. It's well advertised to all rural farmers. And they can come and drop those off and we get rid of them. And then in September this year, all the heavy chemicals, the real dangerous stuff, South Iraq District, I have, part of my budget, we're given $5,000 limit on collection of that heavy material coming in. That's something that, there is chemicals that we do not accept. And ag recovery will actually go out to the farmer and pick it up, or we're having an open day at Farmlands, I believe it is, trying to keep a barbecue thing going with farmers, and they will position there on a day, and that'll be advertised shortly on our website.
Oh,
Right.
So that's
yeah,
That's so good.
yeah, there's been quite a bit of by ag recovery when they first started, or some years ago, chemical like this in the rural, and then died.
So we've actually just had the documentation of the marketing material and everything's got that.
Oh,
So that'll be good.
yeah.
So there is a process in place.
Righto, guys, no more discussion on that. We received the report. It's not a recommendation, it's a council or officers see the council approve to undertake this public consultation on the proposed bylaw, so that will, I take it, go
Would you like to just note this in the minutes?
Yeah.
So if we can just remember our second.
Rebecca. Right, we are moving along quite nicely. We now have partnership and operations report. No, that's it. Right, someone like to move, we receive it. All over?
Aye.
I'm good. Now, Fiona, is there anything you want to say?
Hopefully it's self-explanatory, we'll just note potentially to more dashboard approach to these type reports, as well as supplementary papers as required. Hopefully this wasn't too wordy, but I guess if there's any questions or areas that require further explanation, I'm going to take questions.
Right, Rebecca.
Yeah, we don't, I haven't put my hand.
We are
You just reached a couple of questions. It was only about roading maintenance. I know that was one of the ones when we looked at that draft dashboard. Some of that stuff that happens over a long time. But I was just wondering, with the numbers that you put there, are you able to give just a quick commentary as to how we're tracking against our targets?
We're tracking well. The one that isn't likely to be met is KPI to reseal 5% of our roads through the year. And that was part due to underfunding or change of contract, but also most of the accounting COVID tax. That's actually right in the window when all this will be done. So it's likely that we'll be missing on that one. And we'll be playing catch up on that next year as well.
Go ahead,
So, just on page 9, I'm confused with the discussion about accessing Wi-Fi. Page 9. The Featherston Wi-Fi use is 5 times higher than anybody else. I'm just wondering why. It's just unbelievable. I mean, you come back and think what Alex and I have been talking about, Featherston with Wi-Fi is great, but the numbers are different. Yeah, I'm just wondering whether there's some, is there some driver or just kids just. I mean, I think it's great. If they're online, it's great. The more we can do in the town, great. So it's a positive. Yeah, sorry. So Featherston Library is set on 24 hours. Yeah, right. So some of the other libraries, like Mount Marathon, also Greytown is as well. But for some reason, you're right, it is high, but that's because if you drive past here at night, it's lit up and people sitting in the seats doing their thing. And right behind the library is the Freedom Campus. Right behind it. And so they're all coming in there and they just get it on the, and they can pick it up from their canopies. And that's what's there for. Yeah, okay. But that's what. So I suspect that's what. Yeah. So the suggestion about Featherston may have that. Yeah, this is the AKK library, National Library Wi-Fi, which it has rules and regulations when you start looking at stuff that shuts you down. So it's not ideal for happening. No, yeah, and if I goes on that, from a connectivity perspective, that Greytown has now been finished with regards to fibre, and Featherston is underway. So that may change the availability of streaming Wi-Fi in the town. But certainly it'd be nice to, if there is that demand, and the library had mentioned that it can get quite messy up front in the morning if they go and pick up all the beer bottles and cans and rubbish. But there's demand, and we should possibly react to that.
I wasn't keen on it 24 hours because we've had the same issue here.
But there's demand. It shows you that.
I think that, can I just add something to that on the Wi-Fi? There was a demand here in Marmara, but that was cut off. So it turns off at 6 o'clock or something like that at night. So if you're going to do free Wi-Fi in Featherston, then you need to do it in the other 2 towns as well.
What's the cost involved in the council? You don't know.
I just requested a quote from Campbell Technology, who did Marsmore. So I think there's free Wi-Fi in Marsmore at the moment through Campbell Technology. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's around about $23,000, including the first year's data, and then about $1,500 per year thereafter.
Yeah, we need to do some investigation.
Yeah, that's just one quote, but it gives us a benchmark.
Yes, sorry. You and I've just got one, and I'm sort of not sure we go with this, so I'm aware of it. So we've got an issue in Greytown, which I've raised through the Greytown Community Board. I've raised through the roading. I've raised, and it seems to be stuck somewhere in the ether between transit and us. And Tim even said to me yesterday, he said, I don't know where to go. So this is Cahoots and the issues flooding us. So it's a problem. This is a Cahoots Cafe, so there's flooding issues at the Cam River Road such that the delivery vehicles are scraping the footpath as they go in and so on and so forth. So now delivery drivers say we're not going to deliver to you because we're wrecking our truck. So we're in this limbo land between transit and council.
We are, and it has been raised with NZTA, and I see the response that came back, and maybe exploring it. So I think they looked at it from their drainage stormwater perspective. I'm not sure it was quite considered from a delivery perspective. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll look at it. Something like that. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Where is your?
Just a quick one. Around the exercise equipment that's going to
The
exercise equipment.
yes.
Whereabouts in the reserves is that going to be?
Okay, so we've had a really good discussion in the house about this. We want to try and bring people down, for instance, Greytown, down this end. So we're looking in Collier's Reserve, a very lovely reserve underutilised. We've had a seat donated by a business there. There will be another seat going in. So we're putting, so it'll be, if you look at Collier's Reserve, front left. Not too far away because I want people to be able to walk, go for a walk, go over and do an exercise or whatever. In Martinborough, it will be on Considine Walkway from Considine Park as they walk and go to the walking track around that way. And in Featherston is going to be on Johnsonville Street. We have a triangular section there. So we're trying to capture people. We didn't want it near the skate park. It's not for kids to use, it's for the adult waters to use. We're looking at putting it on there so we pick up anyone who's getting off the train that's walking home. Might want to do a little bit of exercise, get their legs pumping and stuff like that. So we're putting 2 there as well.
So each.
And over each town will be given 2.
So they'll be giving the rest going
And they'll be getting one of those, and they'll be getting one of those. Yeah. And as we go, we'll get to them. Yeah.
Just on, I don't know whether there is the correct form of rates rebates. They mentioned it in the library report, but how are we tracking on rates rebates versus last year? I know it was a big issue coming into COVID.
That should be true.
I wouldn't object that.
Yes,
It'd be nice to track that because we were concerned in the annual plan regarding what the impact was happening on residents.
no, someone just put to the meeting next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Right.
Could I just say something? I know I'm not meant to, but I can't keep my mouth shut. Can I do some accolades, please? Firstly, Ewan and team, I'd like to, and Tim and that, to say thank you for Esther Street. After waiting 20 years for that to happen, Pip and I are absolutely over the moon that they are getting a footpath and it's looking very nice. I know there's still a little bit finished, but it is actually looking really, really nice. The second one I'd like to say is thank you to Bryce and his team for the work they've done on Payne Farm. It is coming up an absolute treat, and it is really, really good. And also to for the Martinborough Cemetery, the work Bryce has done around that, they've had all the hedge cut and everything, it's looking really, really lovely. So thank you. Probably should say about the library, I love the library report, so they're the highlight of reading assets and services.
So we do have Annette, who's joined us, library service manager, so shared services, council, that we have for libraries. As a dedicated resource to building of libraries.
Great, thank you.
And I just, I spoke to Tony briefly yesterday about the roads, particularly the problem areas, but they haven't themselves those areas. So hopefully we might put on top of that.
We'll continue to work.
Exactly. The Hannah Hill was a problem. It was concerned that the trucks can't get over it, but they are still a lot taking long to go to get Cameron's place, so it's like I'm monitoring.
Seems to be flying everywhere.
With Cameron.
And I really sort of appreciate about leading on from what Ed said, and it was just with regards to what has stopped the extra street footpath, that's not like it's only goes halfway or just a little bit over.
I need to check.
Yeah, there's just, I'm just wondering if it's.
Yeah, it was going to this Aurora and then it stopped.
Yeah, and it's
You raised the Hannah Road, but what is happening with regards to the slightly active slip there at the top around?
Well, it stopped slipping at the moment.
It has not been taken on putting it. GW have taken on the extra resolve any education water issues around there.
Yeah.
And they will leave on that, but we're continuing to monitor the situation.
As long as that's being progressed, because we'll be picking up the can if it actually slips anywhere.
We're pushing and great development.
Thank you.
Right, thanks guys, time getting on, we've got about 5 minutes. So we're moving on to the next one, which is the C7 action item report. So I move to receive it, we'll take your attendance. Thank you. All in favour? Yep. Super for you. Right, have we got any items from action report? You go for it.
Just around number 81. And it's around the national. So what I was just looking at is if there's an issue with private electrons, at the moment the bylaw is saying that it's up to the landowner to appear. So if there is an issue and they don't appear it, are we using any other instrument that we will appear it, either charge it as a rating on the property or recover it by some other means? The cost to fix the issue.
Yeah. Not sure whether, I think there's going to be an update on that.
It's really making an issue.
Like the place model.
Yeah. Or a legal.
There was a slight change. It used to be that they paid for that for right for main. But now that's the boundary. So
Well, that's how I'm looking at this policy thing up here, is when I reviewed again, and I'm just looking at it. Yeah. And it was a problem, obviously.
can we, yeah, well, that's a good point. You know, I'm going under that.
Yeah, there are
Go to Ross's. And,
yeah, I guess not an ops thing, that's much sense. Yeah.
Okay.
It's gone around the circles a little bit last couple of years. Yeah.
Been around for a while. We've Becky, you said you had a couple, huh?
And it is item 114. And in fact, Ian briefly touched on that as well in the update. I just put a note in here that we received an update against the most part in June, but we have any other specifics that could be shared with that. Or shared just in terms of progress with options.
I did raise this with Wellington Water, and I think, and you may know more, but apparently a proposal is imminent with regards to some options. So they are working quite furiously on it, but to be fair, I also did ask Minister Mahuta in a meeting with Harry that they get involved in the solution, because it's a problem that every rural council is also need to be addressed, and that there may be a lot more impact from a government request as to possible solutions. And it's been agreed by the Minister to look at it.
Anyway, this is part of the water reform process. You probably recall the site workshop, the cost of creating the wastewater infrastructure is significantly higher than water. So the wastewater is actually there where government knows there's a significant best gap.
We also raised that we need to address this now, that there's a 3-year plan on resolution from the government to tranche 2, and that those processes are occurring concurrently, yet not interlinked. So we're trying to interlink the current needs with the process.
Well, good. Anyone else? Oh, good. Joel, you want to go to the next one.
If I could also mention item 237, you might be interested in, that in the latest Wellington Water annual plan, there is a substantial amount of money put aside for training and providing courses for water training.
So you might not have been here, but I want to more guys.
Oh, he touched on that? Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving right along. The virus schools were going to present obviously not here. So you all wear those in this report. So there's anything you want to read up on? Go for it. Thanks. Right, we're now to the D section, which is public excluded. So,
A small start. It's world domination.
recording.